zone where the numbers collide, where the laws of the universe can't hide. 8 sigils carved in the dark.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be looking at the Octavo by Peter J Carroll.
Oh yeah, this is a good one, a classic.
So this book delves into some pretty heady concepts. The nature of reality, time, and magic.
Right, it's really blending physics and cosmology and philosophy with like magical theory, so it gets pretty out there.
Yeah, and it all starts with this equation that Carroll calls the spell of the binding. M/L equals C squared over G.
Yeah, I always find it's helpful to just like break down these equations, right? Like, what are we actually talking about here?
Absolutely.
So M represents the total mass of the universe.
Okay.
And L stands for the antipoke length. So basically the distance across the universe to a point opposite you.
Right.
Then we have C, which is the speed of light.
Got it.
And G, which is the gravitational constant.
Okay, that helps. But what does this equation actually tell us about the universe? Like, why is it so important to Carroll's whole model?
Well, he uses it to argue that the universe is shaped like a hypersphere.
A hypersphere. Okay, now I'm picturing like a giant cosmic disco ball.
Not quite. It's a little harder to visualize than that. Imagine the surface of a balloon, but instead of being two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional space curved in on itself.
So like if you traveled far enough in any direction, you'd end up back where you started.
Exactly. There's no edge, no end to the universe.
Wow, that really changes how I picture things.
Right, it challenges our everyday perception of space.
Definitely. And then there's this other concept that kind of blew my mind, the ubiquity constant.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. It's basically the ratio of the universe's size to its fundamental particles. And the number is just mind-bogglingly huge. It means that the building blocks of you, of me, of everything are just this tiny, tiny fraction of an unfathomably large whole.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective, like realizing how small an ant is compared to the entire Earth, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly, and that's just the beginning. Carroll then takes us on a wild ride with the spell of the spinning, or what he calls vorticitation.
Vorticitation?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds intense. What is that all about?
Basically, it's the idea that the universe is not only a hypersphere, but it's also spinning.
Spinning? How can a hypersphere spin?
Well, imagine a basketball spinning on its axis, but at the same time, it's rotating in other directions too, all simultaneously. It's like a multi-dimensional dance.
Whoa, that's a lot of spinning. So why is this vorticitation so important?
Carroll argues that without this constant spinning, everything would just collapse inwards due to gravity.
So it's like a delicate balancing act.
Exactly. And this principle of vorticitation doesn't just apply to the universe as a whole. He suggests it's happening at the level of tiny particles, too.
So everything is spinning.
Pretty much. And get this, he even links the spinning to the creation of time itself. And not just time as we experience it, but time with 3 dimensions.
Hold on, 3-dimensional time? I thought we were already stretching our brains with hyperspheres.
I know, right? But we'll dive deeper into that concept later on in the book.
Okay, looking forward to it. Now, one thing that really intrigued me was how Carroll explains the balance between matter and antimatter.
Yes. He proposes that this vorticitation causes the universe to flip between matter and antimatter over incredibly long periods, like a cosmic clock ticking away over billions of years.
Wow. But then which state are we in right now? Are we living in a matter universe or an antimatter one?
That's a great question, and one that even Carroll admits we don't have a definitive answer to.
Huh. So we're just kind of along for the ride.
In a way. But the point is that this constant flux, this dynamic interplay between matter and antimatter is fundamental to how the universe works.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change.
Exactly.
What makes you think about how this cosmic dance impacts our own lives?
It really does. And you know what? We're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to explore in the Octavo.
I can't wait. But for now, I think we need to let all this sink in. This is a lot to process.
Agreed. Let's give our listeners a moment to digest these mind-bending concepts before we move on.
Sounds good.
Here again, we deal with new books about Chaos Magic. You can understand now that have many ways to practice Chaos Magic in your life. And by the way, everything could not be called Chaos Magic because Chaos Magic is all kind of magic. So be comfortable to tell me anything about these videos I make for you every time, okay? Here in
Chaos Magic time.
All right, so are you ready to dive into some cosmic illusions?
Hit me with it. I'm ready to have my reality shattered.
Okay, well, one of the big ones that Carroll tackles is the idea of an expanding universe. You know, the whole Big Bang theory.
Yeah, the idea that everything is moving away from everything else.
Exactly. But Carroll suggests that this might not be the whole picture.
Really? How so?
Well, it all comes down to this thing called redshift, where light from distant galaxies appears shifted towards the red end of the spectrum.
Right, and scientists interpret that as evidence that those galaxies are moving away from us, like a cosmic Doppler effect.
Yeah, but Carroll proposes a different interpretation. He says that redshift could actually be caused by the gravity of the universe as a whole.
So like light is losing energy as it travels those vast distances and its wavelength stretches, causing the redshift.
Exactly. And remember the hypersphere we talked about? He believes the universe has always been this size, finite, and unbounded. There was no initial explosion.
Wow, a universe without a beginning or an end? That's a lot to take in.
Mm.
But if the universe isn't expanding, how does he explain the observed redshift? I mean, doesn't that contradict his whole model?
Well, he actually provides a mathematical equation to explain it. He factors in things like the mass of the universe and the distance light has traveled. And his calculations actually line up with the observed redshift without needing an expanding universe.
Huh. So it's like we've been looking at the universe through a distorted lens this whole time.
Exactly. And this leads to another illusion that he talks about the apparent mismatch between redshift values and distance estimates for really far away objects.
A mismatch? What do you mean?
Astronomers have noticed that some very distant objects appear fainter than they should based on their redshift. And this has led to all sorts of theories about dark energy.
Oh, right, that mysterious force that's supposedly pushing the universe to expand faster and faster.
Exactly. But Carroll says that this apparent mismatch is just another illusion caused by the curvature of the universe.
Right, because we're dealing with a hypersphere, not a flat plane.
Exactly. So light traveling across those vast distances is actually following the curve of the hypersphere. It's not traveling in a straight line as we perceive it.
Ah, so it's like trying to measure the distance between 2 points on a globe using a ruler. You're going to get a distorted measurement.
Precisely. And Carroll calls this hyperspherical lensing. And his calculations actually match the observed discrepancies without resorting to dark energy.
Wow, so he's just using the basic structure of the universe to explain these phenomena that have puzzled scientists for decades.
That's the beauty of his model. It's all about finding simple, elegant explanations rooted in the fundamental principles of physics and cosmology.
I love it. But these are some seriously mind-bending concepts.
They are, but that's what makes it so fun to explore, right? It challenges us to think outside the box.
Absolutely. You know, it's starting to feel like Carroll is less of a physicist and more of a cosmic magician, revealing the illusions that cloud our perception of reality.
I like that. And you know what? This theme of illusion goes beyond the physical universe. He even tackles the illusion of gods.
Oh, wow. Now we're getting into some deep philosophical waters. What's his take on that?
Well, he argues that the idea of a singular creator god, a being who brought the entire universe into existence, is a delusion.
That's a bold statement. So he's basically saying there's no God.
Not necessarily. He acknowledges that humans have this natural tendency to anthropomorphize, to project human-like qualities onto things we don't understand.
Right, like seeing faces in clouds or patterns in random noise.
Exactly. And he suggests that we've done the same thing with the universe itself.
Wow.
We've created gods as explanations for things we can't comprehend or as figures to appeal to for help or guidance.
So gods are more like psychological constructs than actual beings.
That's essentially what he's saying.
Right.
And while this might seem like a purely philosophical point, it actually ties directly into his model of magic.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. I was wondering when magic would enter the picture.
It's all connected. You see, Carroll believes that the power of gods, the power we attribute to them, actually comes from the belief we invest in them.
For belief itself as a force.
Exactly. And this is where his theory of magic comes into play. He proposes that magic isn't about invoking supernatural forces, but about harnessing the power of belief and intention to influence probabilities.
So it's not about breaking the laws of physics, but about working within those laws to nudge things in a desired direction.
Precisely. It's like playing a cosmic game of chance and using our minds to slightly tilt the odds in our favor.
Wow, that's a fascinating way to think about it. So
Yeah.
instead of trying to control reality, we're more like gently guiding it.
Exactly. It's about working with the subtle forces at play in the universe and using our intentions to shape the flow of events.
This is blowing my mind wide open. It seems like we've covered so much ground, from the illusions of an expanding universe to the nature of gods and the power of belief. Can you give us a quick recap of the key takeaways from the Spells of Illusion?
Sure. So basically what we've discussed is that the idea of an expanding universe might be an illusion caused by how gravity affects light over vast distances, and that dark energy might not be necessary to explain the observed redshift if we consider the curvature of the universe, and that gods are likely psychological constructs, projections of our own minds, and the power we ascribe to them stems from our belief in them, and that magic is about understanding and manipulating the wave function of reality, using the power of belief and intention to influence probabilities.
Wow, that's a lot to digest. But it definitely sets the stage for a deeper exploration of Carroll's model of magic.
It does, and in the next chapter, The Spells of Subtle Magic, we'll dive into the nuts and bolts of how magic works within this framework. Get ready for a journey into the quantum realm.
I'm on the edge of my seat. But before we move on, I have one last question about this illusion of an expanding universe. If the universe isn't expanding, does that mean it's static and unchanging? Seems like a pretty boring universe if nothing ever really changes.
Not at all. While the overall size of the universe might remain constant, the stuff inside the matter, energy and information, is in a constant state of flux. It's like a giant cosmic kaleidoscope with patterns constantly shifting and rearranging themselves.
So it's not that the universe is static, but that the change is happening within a fixed framework.
Precisely. And this constant interplay of forces, this cosmic dance of creation and destruction, is where Carroll sees the potential for magic to operate.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. I can't wait to see how we connect the dots between quantum physics magic and the very fabric of reality. Let's dive into the spells of subtle magic and see what wonders await.
Next week, Saturday 15th, we'll start the new stage on this channel. Will be about Necronomicon Magick by Chaos practitioners. Maybe not all practitioners use the Necronomicon mythos for magic, but who practice enjoy a lot. This is very important because there's a lot of books about it. So we must study day by day and a lot to improve our magic. There's a lot to be studied about it. So I wait for you. Bye.
Okay, so we're back and ready to explore the heart of Carroll's magic system in the Spells of Subtle Magic. This is where things get really interesting, the intersection of quantum physics and magic.
Yeah, this is where it all comes together. Carroll really lays out the mechanisms behind his theory, and it all starts with information.
Right, you mentioned earlier that the universe has a limited amount of information, so how does that play into magic? Well, Carroll argues that there's not enough information in the universe to completely determine every single event at the quantum level.
So there's some inherent randomness, some wiggle room.
Exactly, and that's where magic comes in. It's about tapping into that wiggle room and influencing the probabilities of events.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? How do we harness that randomness?
Carroll introduces this concept called the prime, represented by the Greek letter pi. It's basically a unit of magical energy that exists within this realm of quantum indeterminacy.
So like tiny packets of energy flitting around in the quantum font.
Exactly. And Carroll believes that through focused intention, through things like visualization and concentration, we can actually influence these primes and nudge the probabilities of events.
So it's not about breaking the laws of physics, but about working within them to kind of steer things in a desired direction.
Exactly. It's like influencing the outcome of a coin toss without physically touching the coin.
I like that analogy. So we're not talking about grand miracles or anything.
No, it's much more subtle than that. The effects are often very small and require a deep understanding of the system you're trying to influence.
So no parting the seas or levitating mountains.
No, not quite. But that doesn't mean it's not powerful. Carroll emphasizes the importance of choosing achievable objective. You need to find systems where even a small shift in probability can have a significant impact.
So it's about identifying those tipping points, those delicate balances where a little nudge can make all the difference.
Exactly. Like influencing the outcome of a close election or improving your chances in a game of chance or even subtly guiding someone's thoughts or decisions.
Like that butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
A small change in one place can ripple outwards and have a big impact.
Precisely. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of things, the web of cause and effect. And this is where things get really interesting, because Carroll also introduces another unit called the Thom, represented by the Greek letter theta.
And what does the Thom represent?
It's a unit of magical information. So while primes deal with energy, Thoms deal with the flow of information within a system.
So it's like having a toolkit for manipulating reality.
In a way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very subtle, delicate kind of manipulation. It requires skill and practice and a deep understanding of how the universe works.
So how do we develop those skills? Do we need to become quantum physicists?
Not necessarily. Carroll emphasizes the importance of experimentation and an open mind. He suggests things like visualization, meditation, and ritual as ways to train our minds to interact with this subtle realm of reality.
It's like learning a new language, a way of communicating with the universe on a deeper level.
Exactly. It takes time and effort, but the rewards can be profound.
Wow. This has been an incredible journey through the Octavo. We've covered so much ground, from the nature of reality and the illusion of an expanding universe to the power of belief and the subtle workings of magic.
It's been quite a ride, and
Well-
we've only just scratched the surface. Carroll goes on to explore even more mind-bending concepts like three-dimensional time and the magical link and the ethics of magical practice.
I'm definitely going to have to revisit this book. It's given me a whole new perspective on things.
Me too. It's one of those books that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the Octavo. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these mind-bending concepts with us.
And who knows? Maybe you'll even be inspired to try out some of Carroll's techniques for yourself.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Mapping the forces that leave their mark. From the chaos a new path is born. The rules of reality are reborn. In the spin of the cosmic wheel, we bend the truth, we make it real. The Octavo, in the lines of chaos, bound by the stars in the sky. Rotation and connection we defy. In the magic we live and we fly. 8 keys to the door we unlock. A new way to see, a new way to talk. With every spell we break the block. The Octavo, where the secrets rock.